Are toxic workloads illegal? Well, we're going to come on to the legalities of this. But before we do that, I have to say this is not legal advice. I just wanted to share this article with you. Can HSE prosecute in relation to workplace stress? What employers need to know. Because workplace stress is a massive thing in the UK. In fact, there's some shocking statistic when it comes to stress, depression, and anxiety, taking time off work because of those things. But employers have a legal right and a legal duty to support their employees. Now, before we come on to this and look at can HSE prosecute companies, and for those that don't know, the HSE stands for the Health and Safety Executives. But let's look at the legislation on the government website, because you may be familiar with the Health and Safety at Work Act of 1974. And I'm not going to read all of it, but I want to read the important part of it. An act to make further provision for securing the health, safety, and welfare of persons at work. Now, that health and safety covers a whole range of things: physical health, mental health, all of the above. So that is a legislation. Now, there's a little bit of a grey areas around it, but let's look at some of the key elements on this legislation, because it's important for employers to know. If you're a manager or a leader, you need to be supporting your employees or your colleagues, because, well, it's the right thing to do, firstly. And secondly, if you don't, can HSE prosecute in relation to this? So let's look at some of the general duties of employers to their employees. And I'm not going to read all of it. I'll leave links to all of these articles in the description box for you to check out if you wish to. But let's just go through some, because it shall be the duty of every employer to ensure, so far as reasonably practical, the health, safety, and welfare at work of all his employees. All of the employees. Arrangements for ensuring, so far as is reasonable practicable, safety and absence of risks to health in connections with the use, handling, storage, and transport of articles and substances, and the provision of such information, instruction, training, and supervision as is necessary to ensure, so far as is reasonably practicable. I don't know why I can't say that word. The health and safety at work of his employees. And that's the grey area here. Reasonably practicable. Because who decides what is reasonably practicable, right? Who makes up that decision? And now, as someone who helps companies support the health and well-being of their employees through a range of workshops, it's not only beneficial for reducing time off work to support employees, but it's also the law. It's also important to follow the law of supporting employees. Now, the other one I wanted to look at was the general duties. It shall be the duty of every employer to conduct his undertaking in such a way as to ensure, so far as reasonably practicable, that persons not in his employment who may be affected thereby are not thereby exposed to risk to their health or safety. So anyone involved in their business shouldn't be exposed to risks of health or safety. A lot of things with these legislations, they're written in a lot of old English. Now, another legislation to be aware of, because, you know, it's important. And, you know, we don't want workplaces that are toxic, that are contributing to stress, that are causing employees to take time off work. The statistics change every year, but I believe it was 1.9 million working days lost in the UK last year due to stress, depression, and anxiety. But there's also the management of health and safety at work regulations. Now, I'm not going to read this. You can look it up. I'll leave the link in the description. But I do want to highlight a specific section of this. Every employer shall make a suitable and sufficient assessment of the risks to the health and safety of his employees to which they are exposed whilst they are at work, and the risks to the health and safety of persons not in his employment arising out of or in connection with the conduct by him or of his undertaking. So the health and safety of employees and, ensuring that good business practices don't damage other people. And the other one I wanted to point out was the training. Every employer shall ensure that his employees are provided with adequate health and safety training. Now, when it comes to toxic workloads, stress, what are companies doing to support this? Are people suffering with toxic workloads because they don't know how to manage workloads efficiently? They haven't been taught how to be more productive during their workloads. In fact, there's the Eisenhower Matrix. So the Eisenhower Matrix, if you're not familiar with it, have a look at it. Have a look at this blog. I'll leave this link in the description. But things like this can help employees support their productivity and help them to prioritize more efficiently so that they don't feel overwhelmed and stressed. In fact, we've got a great workshop and webinar on mastering workplace productivity. But aside from that, it's the duty of companies to support their employees. It's the duty to manage toxic workloads. Now, let's go back to this article. Can HSE prosecute in relation to workplace stress? Now, there's a lot of talk about what workplace stress is and some of the statistics, I believe. We're going to skip all of that. We're going to go straight to, can workplace stress lead to HSE prosecution? And in here, yes. Simple answer, yes. In serious cases, failure to manage work-related stress can result in enforcement action, including prosecution by the HSE. Historically, the HSE has focused more on physical injury and safety risks, and whilst prosecution for workplace stress remain rare, they are legally possible, with the regulatory body progressively examining the management of mental health risk. Now, with mental health being a much bigger topic now, a topic that companies are more aware of and supporting more, and actually being brought to the forefront more, it's really essential for companies to help support their employees to manage their health and well-being while at work. But let me know what you think in the comment box. And if you're an organization that take pride in supporting their employees, check out the Love and Life mailing list. There's a link in the description box. Join the Love and Life mailing list. We send out free resources to help companies support their employees. But until then, remember, a happy workforce is a productive workforce.